Hey sports fans, Coach Nick here with Ben Heisler for our new version of the Starting Five. Today we're going to do the NBA season preview as an early morning show. Ben, thanks for getting on the show so early with us.
And Coach, you're the one that's up early today, so thank you. It's good to be back. Good to be doing the starting five again. Normally on this show, we like to take the top 5 biggest trending topics in the NBA, go through them. But season preview, a lot to go on. So let's make this a little 5-on-5 edition. So we'll get to the 10 biggest stories, little rapid fire heading into the NBA season. Of course, we have to start with number 1, Coach. That's the Golden State Warriors. Are they primed to defend their NBA championship? For me, I think you have to say yes.
I mean, I think defending is one of the hardest things to do in the NBA, obviously. It doesn't happen very often, which is why probably not, the odds are not in their favor in Vegas, and people are picking against them. You know, it's easy to have that sort of hangover, and they don't quite, start out as well as they did. But, when you have Steph Curry on your team and the components that they have, and some of those guys have gotten better, you kind of have to put them at that number 1 slot to begin the season.
I think you're right. I think the way that Curry has played just throughout all of last year, and I think he's a guy that's never sort of done. He wants to continue to build himself up. He wants the team to be able to continue to keep themselves going. I think the added role of Draymond Green really helps his team out a lot. Worried a little bit about what happens down in the post, but that's never been the strength of their team. The strength has been their backcourt. And I also worry a little bit about Steve Kerr's health, whether or not that's going to be a concern. But I absolutely think they're primed to go ahead and defend. But that leads us to our second storyline, Coach, and that's the Cavaliers. They're spending $170 million plus on their payroll this year. It's the highest payroll in NBA history. Do they finally have enough to help LeBron get his 3rd ring?
Well, they do, but remember, Kyrie is not coming back for a little while there, so they might stumble out of the gate, although it might give them a chance to finally get more LeBron James and Kevin Love action together, which would be amazing. Yeah. And we'll have to see who runs that team. Is it LeBron or is it Coach Blatt? Because that was the dynamic at the end of last year that we saw was a problem. And if they can't get that sorted out, I think that's going to hold them back to some degree.
Yeah, and I think you have an opportunity to try out a different type of offense at the beginning with Mo Williams running the show, a little Dellavedova as well. You saw his impact in the playoffs, a smart, heady player. But I think Kevin Love is the biggest opportunity for this team. I think this is the year he really starts to put it together in year number 2 for Cleveland. I think the biggest key is finding ways to make sure LeBron is rested throughout the regular season. They tried to do a good job of it last year. And remember, there was so much scrutiny on this team in the first half of the season. I think this year they know how good they can be. They know when to turn it on. And it's like the Popovich type of method. If you can get these guys rested and ready to go for the grind of the NBA playoffs, then I think you're in better shape. Question number 3 for you, Coach, and that's to the Chicago Bulls. No Tom Thibodeau anymore. Fred Hoiberg is the new man in charge. He's got to deal with the NBA's most improved player, Jimmy Butler, and an MVP from what seems like ages ago in Derrick Rose, who continues to try and fight himself back. Will Fred Hoiberg get the Bulls closer to a championship or perhaps further away?
Well, I keep hearing a lot of disrespect for the East besides the Cavaliers. They're already giving King James the crown, and I think that's ridiculous. There's no question what the Bulls are doing now is better as far as the offense. It's a really nice flow. We broke it down earlier this year, or earlier a few weeks ago, and they're really going to be dangerous offensively. The only problem they're going to have is how are they going to get 5 guys together that are going to be able to defend anybody? It's not the same Thibodeau defense they used to have, even though they have most of the same players. So the biggest problem you always have as a coach is which 5 to play with whom, and I don't know if Hoiberg has figured that out yet. It might take him half a season before they can settle on the nice balance between offensive scoring and all the special things he's doing on offense with his sets and the defensive side.
And I think what's interesting, too, is I got a chance to watch a lot of Fred Hoiberg games here in the Kansas City area when Iowa State would come to town to play KU, and also in the Big 12 tournament over here. And the sets that he ran at ISU was a very up-tempo offense, but it was a pro-style offense, and he's a very smart offensive coach. But he hired some really smart people around him as well. And I like what he can do to mix and match his lineups. If you're going to put Doug McDermott in as the 6th or 7th man coming off the bench, then you can move some guys around, maybe put Butler at the 3. Remember, it's not going to be Paul Gasol and Joakim Noah, both playing together, they're realizing now that when one guy is on the floor, it's probably best for the other guy to be away because they kind of get in each other's way. So I think it allows both of those guys to thrive a little bit better. And I expect a bounce back year out of Joakim Noah because really it can't get worse than it was last year for Joakim. I think he's going to get back to, I don't want to say closer to the level that he was where he was an all-star, but certainly better than what he was a season ago. Number 4 for you, Coach. Let's go to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Are they contenders now that there's a healthy Kevin Durant and new coach Billy Donovan in town?
Well, when you're talking about contenders, absolutely, when you have that much talent between Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant, you are a contender. I was just going through their offense just now in the preseason, and it was kind of a surprise that how little things had changed, which makes me really concerned because, remember, you can destroy the bottom 15 offenses or defenses in the league on a nightly basis for them. They can make those tough shots, but it's when you get to the Final Four in the NBA playoffs when those defenses can shut that down. You're not going to shoot that well. And right now, unless Coach Donovan's got like a whole other mess of tricks in his bag that he's going to unleash throughout the season, from what I've seen now, it's really kind of depressing that they really didn't run much else besides their usual high pick and rolls, a little bit of special thing for Kevin Durant, like one set, and then maybe one other set that I saw. Out of the 150 possessions I went through last night, I might have seen, 15 that I actually liked.
Yeah, somebody was talking to me about whether or not they have concerns with the 2 spot. And I said, well, why do you have concerns? You have Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant, now assuming that they both stay healthy. I think Enes Kanter is going to be a really interesting piece for them this year. Obviously, he came over in the trade last year, looked really sharp, took away some minutes from Steven Adams. Serge Ibaka needs to have another really solid year. Their starting 5, especially with Westbrook, Durant, Ibaka, and Kanter, if he plays to the level that he played last year, I think it's as good as anybody's. It's about the depth for this team and whether or not they make some more adjustments along the way. I think Billy Donovan is, compared to where they were before, I think is a better coach in being able to make those adjustments. Continuing on here on the starting 5, we are at number 5 of our 5-on-5 here to start the NBA season. It's the LA Clippers, Coach, and you're in your neck of the woods. How are they all going to get along now that DeAndre Jordan came back?
Well, I mean, they had a come-to-Jesus moment, and they seem like they're all back on the same page. But, they added more depth on the bench, but I'm not sold. Lance Stevenson, to me, looks kind of lost out there. Doesn't really know where he fits in, what he wants to do. Looks like he's thinking too much. And as a result, I haven't seen much from that side. And they have some other weird pieces that are, they on paper might fit. But I think that Doc's going to have his hands full trying to make that all work properly so that they're contending for the championship at the end of the year. But again, with that much talent, they are going to be in the top 3 of the Western Conference, which is a brutal conference nonetheless. And it's only a question of if they can, keep it together and avoid the fundamental mistakes that they were making in the finals or the conference semifinals last year that caused them to completely fall apart.
I think it always starts with Chris Paul. You and I both know that, and whether or not it's about finding the right opportunities for DeAndre to get himself going, whether or not they're going to be able to adapt and teams start to hack him towards the fourth quarter. It almost sort of worked in their benefit a little bit a few times as well, but it's about adjustments, and Doc can do that if he gets everybody on board. You talked about Stevenson. I think the nice part for him is that in Charlotte, he was expected to be the guy, and that just wasn't a good role for him. In Indiana, it was a better situation. I almost think here he still looks a little bit lost, as he said, but maybe it just allows him to sort of get himself going when he needs to, and they don't rely on him as that key core piece to get their offense rolling. Again, no Matt Barnes as well. He's now gone, so they brought in Wes Johnson. Johnson and Paul Pierce are going to be able to play some of those minutes. So again, your point on Stevenson, I think, is well on, but I guess the nice part for me is that you don't have to rely on him, which wasn't the situation for him in Charlotte. Number 6, Coach, it's the Indiana Pacers. Paul George is back, and can a healthy Paul George get the Pacers back to being one of the top teams in the East?
Absolutely. I mean, he was complaining about being a power forward. I'm just like, you know what? Stop complaining and go out there and dominate. What he's doing on the offensive end, it really puts the other team in a real tough position to guard him. And you know what? So he fronts the post if they try and back him down. He's got to box out a couple extra times a game. I know when he was playing small forward, he had to box out a little bit, and the guy might not have been as strong, but big deal. It's definitely in the long run going to help the team as it stands because they don't really have anything else to put in that position. So I think that they're a really great pickup in Monte Ellis, one of my favorite players, believe it or not. And then you have George Hill, who was doing very nicely at the end of last year and perhaps has gotten a little bit more confidence and found that role. So they're going to surprise some people. I think that they're going to get back in that conversation and could get into that, the middle of the Eastern Conference for that playoff race. Hey, they get that home court advantage. They could go past that first round and make some noise.
Yeah, you talked about George Hill's confidence. Anybody has to be confident when you're sporting the hairdo that George Hill currently has right now with those that full blonde look. It's a little interesting. I think you're right about Paul George. I think if he embraces the 4, he can be an all-star again and really sort of handle that position well. He has the size to be able to do it. He's not only going to play the 4. They can move him if they want to go a little bit bigger and move him down to the 3 spot. They have that ability to do so. I love the Monte Ellis. I think he's going to be really, really good there. Give him an opportunity to score, really light things up on the bench. He's a guy that I felt was undervalued a little bit in Dallas. No Roy Hibbert anymore. It's Mahinmi's going to be over. It's going to take over the center role. It's going to be a different little bit of contrast at the 5 spot. But I think they're all good, as you said, if Paul George fully embraces being at the 4. Andrew Wiggins is my 7th topic. He was the Rookie of the Year in year 1. Do we think he's an all-star now in year number 2?
Well, it's tough because he's, at his position. I mean, I guess he's going to play more of the small forward, or I'm not sure if he's going to play the shooting guard or how that's going to end up playing out. But, it's a tough position to try and get into the All-Star game with. But I think he's going to have a really good year. He showed signs of being dominant, and there's no reason to believe he won't continue that. I mean, there's a little bit of this internal strife and struggle with the whole coaching situation. It was very sad to see Coach Flip Saunders pass away. And, we'll have to find out what effect that might have. Because don't forget, Coach Saunders was also the president and the GM and everything. So I would expect Andrew Wiggins to have a really good year. I would imagine that, guys like Zach LaVine are going to improve as well, and even guys like Shabazz Muhammad. So they should be one of those teams that probably puts together runs in games. Might not finish them out and still have the record that's substandard, but they're going to end up having runs in those games that really strike some fear into their opponents.
Yeah, and I think with Wiggins, he continues to take steps in the right direction. He's just a really smart basketball player, and I don't think people give him the type of credit he deserves for what he did a season ago. I always sort of thought that when he went to Minnesota, he'd be the clear Rookie of the Year, but maybe he'd be a better basketball player if he would have stayed in Cleveland with LeBron. But he's a really smart basketball player and turned the corner very nicely. I think Zach LaVine absolutely improves. I think they're still going to try and keep Rubio involved as best he can. The type of distributor he is. Mm-hmm. I also think Gorgui Dieng is going to be a really nice piece for them as well. I sort of compare him to Joakim Noah in the sense of how much energy he brings on the defensive end. He's turning himself into a pretty nice passer. The offensive post game still needs to be developed a little bit, but I think once things are said and done, I think Gorgui Dieng could help them become – they're not a playoff team by any means, but I do think they're going to be substantially improved from where they were a season ago. And that leads us to our next talk, Coach. We talked about Andrew Wiggins last year as the Rookie of the Year. Let's look at the rookies this year. I sort of put it into 5 different guys, and I'm going to throw them out there. And then, of course, there's another category. But out of Karl Anthony Towns, Jahlil Okafor, D'Angelo Russell, Stanley Johnson, and Justice Winslow – if you want to throw somebody else out there, you can. But who do you think is going to be that rookie that really steps up in 2015, 2016?
Well, the name that is not on that list right now is Emmanuel Mudiay, who is going to get a lot of time and a lot of run in Denver with just having the ball in his hands. So I would suspect that he might have the best production of any of those guys simply because of the opportunity. However, the buzz going out there is Stanley Johnson's going to have a really nice year. The question is he'll be battling for minutes with Morris, but if he starts to play well and Morris falters a little bit, I don't think that Coach Van Gundy will have any issue putting him in that, giving him more minutes. So I like his game. I mean, he has everything kind of covered across the board there, even defensively. So, he might be the guy, Stanley Johnson, who I really keep my eye out for the Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, I really like him a lot, too. I actually made a bet with one of my 610 Sports Radio cohorts, Henry Lake, when Stanley Johnson and Justice Winslow got picked. And I bet him that Winslow was going to finish with a higher scoring average than Johnson, and now I'm starting to wonder maybe if that was a pretty bad bet. I think Johnson is certainly in consideration. You talked about how Stan Van Gundy feels about him. He says he's earned his minutes in the preseason and has no problem giving him more minutes during the regular season. But that Towns is going to play. That Okafor and Russell are going to get their minutes as well. So I think right now it's pretty much a toss-up, but I'm going to give the slight edge to Jahlil Okafor, because I think he's going to get a ton of minutes and a lot of touches inside. And not all the time for Rookie of the Year, you look at a lot of the defensive numbers. So I think Okafor is going to score a lot, score plenty, and I think that's going to lead towards his voting for Rookie of the Year. Number 9 for you, Coach, another one in your neck of the woods, and that's Kobe Bryant. Do we actually believe that this will be his final season?
You know what? I do. I really do. I feel like, he's actually looked okay in the preseason when he's played, sort of the similar version we've seen when he was healthy two years ago. So, he might actually put up some decent numbers, but I have a feeling he's going to get to the end of the year, look back and say, you know what? I don't think it's going to get any better than this, and it probably only goes downhill. So I think he's going to hang it up.
I think so too, especially with a lot of the young guys coming in and the fact that they're going to be better. I still don't think they're anywhere close to the level of success that Kobe's used to playing with. I'm looking forward to watching a full season out of Julius Randle. I really enjoyed what I saw out of Jordan Clarkson, another guy that I got to watch locally here in Kansas City. And then D'Angelo Russell too. I saw him play a lot of games for Ohio State, being a big-time basketball fan. I wonder what the impact of Hibbert will be. I'm not sure whether or not that's necessarily the greatest signing for LA. But there's some pieces here. There's some intriguing guys, and they won't be as horrific as they were a season ago. But if I'm Kobe, I'm not motivated by this team to say, you know what, I think I got another year left in me. I think this is going to be the final one for him. And then final one for you, Coach, because the regular season hasn't started yet, and it's never too early for predictions for 7-8 months from now. Give me the MVP that we'll see at the end of the season.
Well, I'm actually really high on Houston right now. I think picking up Ty Lawson was a huge improvement for them, particularly because it will allow James Harden to get off the ball a little bit. And I think that actually will make him more efficient, getting easier shots. So he might go from 27 or 28 points a game to 26 or 25, but I think he's going to shoot better. I think he'll be a better, more efficient player, perhaps even play even more defense, because he wasn't terrible last year defensively. So I think that he will be the leading discussion guy for the MVP as we get closer to that year, especially because I feel like Houston's going to have a really good year. I know the MVP voting happens before the playoffs, but I have them getting the finals right now. So I go with James Harden, the beard.
Yeah, I think if Lawson can get his act together, I think that's a really strong pick. I'm still leaning towards Anthony Davis because of how he continues to carry this team all by himself. Without him, they are nothing. I know that they have some improved pieces, but it's basically the same team from last year, and Davis is only getting bigger. He's only getting stronger. He's only getting faster and quicker. And so I think they continue to build on their success from last year, and he continues to just put up absolutely monster numbers. There's nobody that can stop him. So I think I'm leaning slightly towards Anthony Davis. And to me, with Harden, I guess my only concern is he was so good last year. I thought he was certainly deserving of it. I just don't know if he can keep that up for 2 seasons in a row. But it all depends on Lawson. If he has his head on straight, if their offense is as efficient as they can make it out to be, I think he certainly has a chance.
Absolutely. Well, that was an amazing 10 subjects in whatever minutes that was. So really great stuff.
Always fun for you, Coach. Always love joining the show. Looking forward to doing it throughout the regular season again this year.
Well, and don't forget, sports fans, at B-Ball Breakdown, we're not a channel, we're a conversation. You in? You in, Ben?
I'm always in, Coach. You know that.